Sim racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was always fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos or danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all will be kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Tonight, the playoff grid gets shut down from 16 to 12. Tonight, it's the cutoff race for the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Good evening and welcome to the iRacing Esports Network and LSR TV's coverage of tonight's action at the Charlotte Roval, as the best drivers in the series look to tackle the last road course on the schedule. I'm Justin Prince, alongside Ms. Randy Chen, and Evan Bazzoka will be joining us in just a few moments for what will be an important race for these drivers. Again, 16 drivers enter today in the playoffs, but only 12 will remain with the pressure on to try and perform on such a challenging road course, Randy.
Yeah, it's going to be such a difficult one of the first times, and a lot of these guys will probably be seeing this road course and this level of competition. Of course, we saw a little preview of what this race might bring with the Peak Series last week, and that being the cutoff race before Homestead for that championship. But this is going to be a challenging one for these guys. 16 drivers getting axed down to 12, and some of those drivers on the outside looking in right now look quick. Some of them look like they're struggling with the right-hand turns.
Andrew Freenosh as well as Jason Jacoby have already secured their spots into the round of 12. But Dylan C. Jones in a good points position entering today. Jonathan Goodell enters in 4th in the standings. Kyle Kamer, Brian Chambliss, Jeremy E. Miller, Thomas J. George, Skylar Shackelford, and Reck McBride, along with Eric Stanford and Scott Brotherton, enter today inside the top 12. However, the pressure's going to be on for that cut line. Connor Horn just 2 points back, but one of the potential favorites for today was strong on the road courses at Sonoma with the victory there, as well as the near victory at Watkins Glen. Scott McClendon, a normal top 10 runner on the road courses, looking to do so today. Andrew T. Jones and Anthony Fredericks round out those drivers. The split from the cutoff to 16th position, just 13 total points in the standings.
Yeah, so points are really close right now as guys are out there on qualifying. Right now it's the 88 of Andrew Freenage, who has pole at a 116.116, and Connor Horn, one of those drivers here, Justin, that you talked about, outside looking in. He goes 2/10 quicker in that 24 over Andrew. So right now that 24, he needs basically a win to get away from here and to get into the next round of the playoffs, and he's trying to start it out well by putting himself on pole.
Indeed, remember, he ended up winning at Sonoma after Andrew Freenage crashed on the front stretch. He was trying a one-stop strategy for that race. He tried it again at Watkins Glen, held on to the lead for about 8 laps or so before running out of fuel, heading towards the final 2 corners on the track. Currently Horn on the provisional pole with a 1:15.9, as the drivers have run out of time to record qualifying times. Just 5 minutes to set 2 laps for these drivers today. Let's take a look at your starting grid for tonight's action for the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. On the pole tonight, Connor Horn starts on the inside of the front row. He'll start alongside his points championship competitor Andrew Freenage, the season leader in victories. Kyle Kamer starts in 3rd with Rick McBride in 4th. Rounding out the top 5, Randy, is Dylan C. Jones.
Skylar Shackelford is going to roll off from that 6th spot with Blake O'Connell and Thomas George in 7th and 8th. 9th will be David Washington, and Brian Chambliss is going to round out the top 10.
2 other drivers recorded qualifying times, Anthony Fredericks and Andrew T. Jones. T. Jones with a 1:24 qualifying time. Jonathan Goodell running tonight's race from a hotel room. Will start in P13 as the first driver via provisionals. Eric Stanford starts in 14th with R.J. Williams starting in P15.
Yeah, a ton of drivers, I think, getting caught out by the qualifying time allotment, not getting laps. Jason Jacoby, one of them, in 16th, 17th, and 18th. Scott Brotherton and Daniel Eberhardt with Jeremy Bazemore and Brian Macklin rounding out your top 20.
Macklin up in the race control, in fact, but Jeremy Emil will start in 21st. The driver will move up to the 20th spot will be Sean Kalis, though. He had the 22nd spot originally. Scott McClendon starts 23rd with Cody Griffin in 24th. Todd Novosad, Tom Moreno round out the drivers on the track tonight. 25 in total, all set to attack this 17-turn road course. And what should be an interesting and challenging one as drivers go through the infield, through the inner loop, as well as across the NASCAR banking. Let's bring in our main broadcaster for tonight, once again, Evan Pizzoco, as we get set to go Roval racing here, Evan.
And this is a race that we have had circled on the schedule for quite some time. Keep it in mind that, of course, in last year's iteration of this RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, we saw the old Roval, and it still provided us some great racing. Since then, the Roval and then the even newer one has come to the iRacing service, and as we get set to roll, we get set as well to advance out of this evening to the round of 12. But it should be a very big night. Of course, Connor Horn, we've documented his close calls. Justin, I know you guys mentioned it as well. Missing the opening race of the playoffs, comes into tonight first driver on the outside looking in. That is a 2-point difference to Scott Brotherton, who I'm sure is going to be feeling the heat with that 24 car in the very top spot.
And we were talking about this, Evan, Randy, and I, about that pressure. Horn, I wouldn't be surprised to see him move on to the next round. He has been one of the strongest drivers in the road courses all season long. But this is going to apply more pressure for everybody else, about 13th on back entering today, as well as to Brotherton. If you make any mistakes at a track that will punish you, especially for those type of issues, you're probably not going to make the next round of the playoffs here. So if you're any of those drivers, you have to get up on it and hope you don't end up getting bit by the Roval monster.
And this is certainly the big wild card for this round of 16. You talk about the monster. We'll go racing at Dover next week, and in most cases, you go racing there, and that's kind of the one to highlight. But Talladega may be the chaotic race at round of 12. That one coming up in 2 weeks' time. So this one, the big question mark, definitely is the Roval. And you mentioned the success that Connor Horn has had. You do have your 2 different road course race winners from this 2019 campaign, starting side by side on the front row, but only 12 drivers actually took a time to qualify, and Freenage and maybe Kyle Kamer as well, third, the only drivers even remotely close to Connor Horn. So that tells me a lot of the field tonight is just trying to make it through this thing in one piece. Normally, you can only mess up 4 times on any given lap. You got 17 different opportunities to miss a corner every single time around tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned it there. Drivers wanting to play it safe. We've seen it in real life. We've seen it with the Peak race last week. We've seen it across the iRacing surface. It's a challenging track. This final chicane especially, too, was surprisingly dangerous. You're going from the fastest speeds on the track to the slowest on the track. You're having to slam on the brakes and hope you don't lock up or slide across the turtles or end up cutting the course. It leads to a lot of challenges. And tonight, these drivers are going to be tested from start to finish as they get ready to go green.
Not only is it really tough, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're happy that you're with us, as always, on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Field in the hands of the 24. Connor Horn is going to look to punch his ticket into the round of 12 as we say, let's go racing from the Roval. Getting set to go green, and the field's going to have to go through the chicane. Green flag in the air, and half the field's going to be in the center of that corner as Horn leads first time into turn number 1. Challenge for second. Frenage hard on the brakes to stay in front of Kamer.
And a couple of drivers nearly pushed up into the wall. I think some actually did make contact, but as we expected, are running much of the field single file, heading their way through the inner loop to turn number 4, heading towards turn 5. Horn already taking advantage of being able to have that inside line for the start of this one, up by at least 5-6 car lengths heading towards NASCAR 1.
It's a very blind corner here in turn number 5. They'll go back downhill now. Turn 7, get all the way to the right. Turn 8, and then you get up into oval turn number 1. And you can see these guys really open it up. And of course, they're getting that same speed than what they used to get on the old chicane. But you mentioned it, pushed way in on this latest iteration. 170 miles an hour that time for your race leaders. And they get down into the 50s in the center of that chicane. So you really got to take control of the vehicle, and I don't think anybody daring to push that bus stop too wide on the opening lap. Looks like everybody successfully through the back straightaway.
Yeah, no one was able to send it down deep, and no one wants to get contact early on in this race. There's still another 54 circles around this road course today. And expect us to be a 2-stopper here, Evan. Fuel, they can go with the 28 laps, but the tires, as we've seen for the Peak race, and as well as many different series, drivers will prioritize the tire wear compared to the fuel. Expect as much as 3 seconds of fall off as these drivers wear these tires quickly.
And well, it seems weird in NASCAR circles, and no pun intended there, but it makes sense when you're talking about road course racing. No full course cautions tonight either. So if you do have an incident, drivers will be alerted. A yellow flag will pop up on their screen in the sim, let them know that something's going on. Again, of course, you use your spotters to help you with that information as well, but we will not slow them down and grid everybody back up. So this race really not only comes down to getting that good start. I think Connor Horn really taking advantage there by Frenage to get that big jump out of the get-go. If these cars even out, it could come down to who's better in these opening 5 laps or so. But P12 in an accident. Somebody's upside down in turn number 2.
Jonathan Caddell, we mentioned he was in a hotel room tonight, was trying to learn every single button. It looks like his car just flipped, going straight to the right. Something going on with the Caddell's car here with the technical conditions. He is set up on a Wi-Fi search system for the hotel room. Should note, there's the chance you're going to have bugs if you're in a hotel room. That time, Caddell had the biggest of them.
Yeah, I've tried to even commentate some of these races with hotel internet. Not the greatest of ideas, and obviously Jonathan Caddell wanted to stay connected to the race while he was off and away, but all of a sudden his night comes to a screeching halt after a connection issue causes him to get into an accident. And this is very interesting because while Jonathan Caddell was 4th in the championship, yes, that's true, his advantage over the cut line was only 17 points to Connor Horn. Horn in a position to fight for the race win, which means that would then drop Brotherton down to the cut. That was also only 15 points. So with Jonathan Caddell DNFing with that internet connection issue right off of the get-go, there's a chance that machine does not make it to the next round.
And that's going to be unfortunate there for Caddell. Having to bring all that equipment, wanting to make sure he can race in the end. not having the equipment work on lap 2, essentially. Not what you want to see, but these drivers right now, we've seen this with the peak race and we've seen this a bit in real life. We're going to see these groups of cars start to build up here, such as this group you're seeing with Shackelford, O'Connell, David Washington. It's going to make it tough to try and keep focus because it's tough to pass here. The best passing zones are right there into turn 1 or heading towards the final chicane, as well as that backstretch chicane. And you can see how difficult it might be to keep rhythm because you might have to check up for someone in front, like Washington's been having to do with that Vegas Golden Knights car.
And of course, the way you get around this racetrack is going to change an awful lot over the course of a run. It is a lot of fun to hop in one of these cars on the simulator and take a couple of laps, but when the tires start to fall off, you really feel that these cars are meant to get around, and O'Connell got into the outside wall. Washington was right there and got into the back of him. He might have actually been able to keep it off as he slammed on the brakes, and Washington will make that pass, but right to that point that I was making, as George also down, going to go by on the inside of turn 2 on the oval. These cars really start to lose that ability to hook up around the corner fast, and you saw that with O'Connell.
Yeah, I could see him not taking a good run coming out of turn 6, and that set up for the bad turn 7. Couldn't get the car to turn, even with the slower speeds, and just kept bouncing and bouncing and bouncing on that suspension all the way up towards the wall. Meanwhile, Jason Jacoby, he's still back in 13th. He's gained 3 spots from the start, including from that 3-wide madness. But this is not where you expect someone like Jason to be. He did mention, though, here, Evan, this is the first time he's been at the Roval. He's only about 30 minutes of practice in that Ford Mustang.
And you can see that he has picked up spots, as you mentioned, up to 13th right now. He was the top 7 car in practice, so we know that that car has the speed. But again, it is a lot more mentally and even physically tasking to a point to run this kind of a race on the surface compared to an oval race. Now, it's nothing like being out there in 130-degree heat inside of a race car, and power steering goes out like you saw the points over the weekend with Bubba Wallace. And it's nowhere near that, don't get me wrong, but you do have to be up on the wheel. You're going to be really intense.
Kyle Kamer just had a bad run to the backstretch chicane and just about pancaked himself up in the wall. Was in P3, did tap the wall. And take a look at this. Had a good run. He was keeping up, actually, with Connor and Andrew. His strongest run on the road course yet this season for Angels Racing. But you'll see it right here on the backstretch chicane. It's hard to get down on the speed. A bit later on the braking point, but on the second part here, loses the back end, hits the turtles, and it just launches him right to the wall. Nowhere else he can go and nothing he can do as McBride goes right on by, loses him a spot.
And that was legitimately all 4 tires up and off the ground as that car had gotten airborne. Of course, you may be thinking about penalties in relation to what it was like with the Monster Energy Cup Series over the weekend. There are none of those stop-and-go penalties in zones on the racetrack. The 8 car was not far enough off to actually get penalized there, and of course he hurt himself when he launched into the safer barrier there on the back straightaway anyways. But if you were to miss the chicane, the sim would assess a time penalty where basically you have to roll way out of the throttle X amount of time to give up before the simulator feels, of course, that you have given up any advantage that you may have gained. Not the case there for Kamer, but might as well note it, because that could be something that we talk about as the night goes on. But that's that thin line. That's probably just the difference of 10 feet too late into the braking zone and not a chance to get that car to turn. An eventful opening 6 laps from the Roval. It is still Connor Horn, though, out in front. He bested Ferdinand in the practice session by 0.6 of a second and bettered him in qualifying by 2. And it did look like on lap 2 or 3 of the race that the 88 had closed back in on him, and we thought maybe a battle for the race lead was imminent. It is now stretched out to 1.3, but these 2 cars, no shock, far and away the best on track.
Yeah, right now, they're the only drivers in the 117 still. Everybody else 118's on back. That's why they've already put away about 5 seconds to Rhett McBride. So you're taking a look at Andrew right now. We mentioned this, though. He's better, it seems, on the long run. But the Roval is an absolutely different beast. If you can't get a run onto NASCAR 1, for example, it hurts your entire run to the backstretch chicane to gain speed. That seems to be where Horn's picking up a lot of time to grow this gap now. He gained a 10th heading to that backstretch chicane alone. It just seems that Connor is much more comfortable on exit compared to the 88.
And that is going to be a big difference as the night goes on. If you can keep that bite off of the corner, especially on that back half of the racetrack, when you come out of the infield portion, up onto turn 1, and then, of course, back down into this chicane where Connor Horn completes another lap. This could go a long way. And the 8 car came on the bumper that time. As we watch the fight for third, he got reined in on Rhett McBride on that front chicane. That's considered turns 15, 16, and 17. He got into him. I wonder if Kamer missed the entry that time and it was in hotter than he wanted, or if he just really likes to really attack those turns.
I think right now it's part wanting to gain the time back and just the difference in braking zone that led to the contact you mentioned, the backstretch chicane. But you have to be careful. You don't want to pull the battle between Blake Reynolds and Garrett Lowe in the peak race, where it was hard contact in the chicane. Twice we've seen drivers having to take time penalties from contact for the rear end. You don't want to be like that with Kyle. Now he's got front end nose damage. By the way, that battle for P11 we were taking a look at, Daniel Eberhardt has come up on top of that battle. They were as much as 3 wide at one point. Jacoby shuffled back behind McClendon here as the intervals are growing more and more on the racetrack.
And we'll see this again stretched throughout the night. It is really a difference between if you're taking away around the intermediate racetrack here, the oval, driver versus driver, especially with this package, how it's designed to keep these cars close together. But even on the Roval, as we watch McBride and Kamer do battle, and the 8 car went a little bit deep that time off of the chicane, it is still driver versus track in the grand scheme of things. In fact, second, third, fourth all going at it.
Yeah, but you might have just seen in the backdrop, Jacoby just about ran over the back end of McClendon in that battle that was up on the screen because he locked it up, heading to the backstretch chicane. That's why I said, oh, there, because I thought he was going to hit that yellow machine. You see him sliding across the turtles like a skateboard, loses some time. Thankfully, doesn't destroy the back end.
So all of this is going to slowly wear on your car. The one benefit that you do have is these race cars don't really take damage in the sense, like a real-life car. I don't think hitting the turtles over and over on the sim is going to lead to some sort of a mechanical failure. So there is that one advantage. As up and onto the banking, Washington bobbled for a moment for P6, and that maybe Shackelford was going to go for him there, but he does not. That's just one of a handful of fights going on the racetrack right now. So that is a benefit, but still you can end up like Kamer, launching over a turtle into the wall. And of course, the damage on that car is hindering him some, maybe not as much as I would have expected, as he's able to stay in front of Jones, but McBride has started to pull away a bit from him in this battle as the 5 car gets overtaken.
Yeah, but you can see with this battle for 10th position, Stanford, another driver, having a bad run through the backstretch chicane. Now he's forced to give up some spots because he lost the back end tires. This is getting a bit dicey with this group now. It started, as we've seen, on lap 2 where Cadell was having his problems. They were 3 wide heading out of NASCAR 1 to that point. They've gone 3 wide a couple times since then, and now they're shuffling back and forth. With all the mistakes we just seen, Daniel Eberhardt is saying, bye-bye, have fun, already 1.6 seconds ahead of the group.
And it's good for Eberhardt, of course, as he tries to pick himself up a little bit. But on and off 2019 campaign for the driver of the number 90 Ford. And you can see as he's closing out the infield portion of the racetrack now, up the hill, turn 6. Again, 7, 8, then he'll go back and onto the banking. He tries to leave that fight with McClendon, Stanford, and Jacoby behind him. But this is a very, very tight corner when you get up and onto the banking, where we saw that issue earlier with O'Connell. You might underestimate just how difficult it is to get that car to rotate with the change in elevation entering that corner. And then, of course, on the flat apron, basically trying to cut up and on it, Jacoby going to get right to the deck lid of the number 91 machine, or 19, sorry, is Stanford in front of him, and he'll drive through the paint down on the apron to go side by side on turn 3 and 4 of the oval. And Jacoby will get the spot, and I think a smart move by Stanford there to not force the issue so they can both make it through the chicane. Jacoby, though, now +4.
I think right now Stanford might have buzzed the tires at this point. We've seen it a little bit with the struggle the last lap, and now He's just fallen off the table in pace. A second straight lap of the 121s. Jacoby looking a bit more comfortable in the 120, still 2 seconds off the race leaders, but it was talked about by some peak drivers. Mentioned this last night in the broadcast, working with Christian Challenger. He agreed on this one, where Logan Crescent mentioned this to me. If you have one bad corner, if you don't get the tires back within a lap, you're done for the rest of the run, and that opens up the door for cars to try and make passes. Look at this chance now, though. The 67 of O'Connell now under attack again by McClendon, as O'Connell is going backwards and McClendon's going forwards.
And of course, not where you want to be early in the get-go here for the 67 of O'Connell. Of course, that smack to the outside wall probably didn't help, but I think in the same case of Kamer, that they actually got away with it, and I don't think the 67's hindered from that. I think these are just faster race cars at this point in a run, and Blake's actually going to queue up on the radio and cue Jason Jacoby to go on to buy on the inside. So obviously drivers are very smart, that they really don't want to be going side by side at a quarter where you go from 160 to 65 that time through that final corner for the number 3 machine. So for all of that, these drivers are trying to mind their P's and Q's. Again, 12 laps in already to this 55-lap contest, and with no full course cautions, you got to take care of each other out there.
Yeah, you don't want to end up destroying your car, and with there being no full course yellows, if you make a drastic mistake or say get into somebody and get stopped for 10 seconds, it's going to be very difficult to get that time back on the racetrack. So you can't afford to really make the mistakes at a track that punishes you for it. Again, we're looking at Reck McBride, for example, now trying to close up a Dylan C. Jones, for example, for 4th position. You're not going to have a chance. It's going to be tough to try and gain time back to, say, battles such as this if you have troubles. Speaking of trouble, Brotherton slow on the top of the racetrack, letting the drivers by already a lap down.
He's a lap down, so going to be extra cautious as they both in this battle for the number 3-4 position, rather, get way up and onto the curbs in that second part of the chicane. And now we race again back into the infield, turn 1, and this left-hander is turn number 2. You got to be very slow as you go on board with McBride here, seeing way out. It's already one big corner, double apex, and then put the right foot down. Who cares about that blue line to your right-hand side? You can use every single inch of the racetrack you can. Now back uphill as McBride continues to stalk the 03. And again, this was a battle that changed out earlier on in this race. Dylan Jones actually initially started behind McBride, passed him at lap number 10, and thought that maybe Jones was going to be able to run away with this one. But since then, McBride's picked it back up a little bit. Jones will gap him a tad here on the banking, but that 5 machine does not want to give this one up. There's a great battle going on, some 12 seconds off for the race leader. Kyle Kamer in 3rd, having been able to get back by all of them. Hasn't gotten too far away, so 3rd on the back, really 3rd, 4th, and 5th, a good battle in its own right. They're kind of that B tier, Justin, because you got Ferdinand. 2.9 is the updated interval this time by off of Connor Horn. And it's this massive jump back to Kamer, 10 seconds. But those 3, Kamer, Jones, McBride, about 2.5 seconds between them. But then it's 13 seconds from McBride in 5th to David Washington in P6.
And I've been impressed with what we've seen with Kamer, you mentioned there, but this is kind of what we were expecting, to see this kind of a layered grouping. It's been like this for much of the road courses, and especially at the Roval. And now that with these layers, it's allowed drivers like, say, Washington to pull away from the layer of Shackelford George and Eberhardt that started to form up. So you're likely going to see a lot of the same drivers much of the day today. It's going to be difficult to get away from them if you didn't have a good qualifying time or good track position, as we've seen. Only 2 drivers have gained double-digit positions today, McClendon and Cody Griffin.
And those are both drivers who started way back in the pack. McClendon 23rd to 10th. And Cody Griffin going 24th to 14th. As you take a look at the 51, as Scott McClendon right now has worked his way up to the top 10. Big gains for him. Of course, we mentioned Jonathan Cadell, who had that very noticeable issue with his connection on the open lap of this race. Also, Todd Novosad has since gone behind the wall in the 34. He had made some contact Left side of the race car was torn up a little bit, and then they spun out of the backstretch chicane, right where you're seeing these guys at the back straightaway take off now, got into the fence again, and decided that was it, so he parked his machine. He is the only other driver to have gone behind the wall, along with Kalist and Brotherton, who run outside the top 20, but are still in this race just a lap down.
And just having a little bit of aero damage can affect you not just with the straight line speed on the oval portion of this Roval, but also can affect a lot of some of the turning, especially depending on where it's at, because it can make you, especially with, say, the damage a little bit, McClendon has a little bit more tighter on some of the exits potentially. He's actually swinging a little bit more looser on these corner exits with the tire temps and the wear, but the more damage you get, the more tougher it's going to be, and especially if you get a bigger shot of, say, around the right front tire, and you can potentially damage the suspension to affect it the rest of the run and lose you some seconds as Eberhardt nearly says hello to the Charlotte USA sign.
That's how tight it is. It's a very tricky corner, and we'll see if McClendon's going to set him uphill, look to the outside as they come roaring off the banking, but Eberhardt's going to win that game of chicken, and it beats him into the chicane. McClendon looks for the better exit off, and Nani car sideways that time as he's given it everything he's got almost every time. We've gotten 2x2. Drivers have let the other one go. McClendon again gonna try, but you gotta get way over to the left-hand side here to make this corner, and Eberhardt took that lane away, and I think McClendon's got the memo now that the Nani is not gonna be one of those drivers to stick the hand out the window and wave him on through.
No, not absolutely. And remember, McClendon needing to gain points to try and lock himself into the round of 12 is doing what he kind of needs to do today. But he needs to keep gaining points. There's still pressure with Horn as the race leader to even make it inside this top 12. So I think he's got the faster car. It's just, again, the matter of needing to get to the proper spot to make the pass while dealing with Jacoby behind you. Look on board and looking to the front nose. Again, he's wheeling this machine, trying to keep up. By the way, Evan, pit window is open. Kyle Kamer ducked it down on lap 15, coming to lap 16 to 17. So the window is open for drivers. The undercut is extremely powerful here at the Roval.
And we'll see how many drivers want to jump on that or if they stick to their guns. And we'll see as well on the decisions between making this on a one-stop or a two. I would expect drivers to want to get that service ASAP, even for your race leader, Connor Horn, who's embarked on another lap. His best lap of the race was 1:16.5. He's already 2 seconds slower than that, with a 1:18.5 last time by. Keep in mind, that's still better than the majority of the field. On board look as we race to the infield with a 5er Rhett McBride. He'll try to stick a nose out on Jones, but Jones takes the corner as he would normally and will not allow the 5 to get a position. Also, we saw on a shot not that long ago with McClendon in that ongoing battle that he smacked the wall right where O'Connell did earlier in this race as well. So he's got some damage that may hurt him in that exchange of further back in the back. It looks like Jones now gapping the 5 car by a bit on the banking.
Now, McBride is actually about 3/10 quicker than Dylan C. Jones. He just, again, can't reach the right spot. He can outpace him, but it's about passing him. That is, again, the difficulty. We've seen how difficult it was with the peak drivers in an open set race. These big sets make it even more difficult to deal with as he ducks down and here he gets ran over.
Close call there, but everybody is going to be okay, and the 03 machine is in. So Jones, who was enthralled in a 3 or 4-way battle for position as he was behind a couple of cars, decided to pit. Also, Andrew Friedage in the 88 car is down and in from the pit lane also. So all of a sudden, your top 5, some of those fastest cars are in. Would it be surprised as we're on to orbit McBride here if he drops down also? And there's your replay, actually, of that close call. So McBride still due out onto the racetrack, but Connor Horn, lap 18, if you put your strategy cap on, again, you're still pretty much in that sweet spot to go for 2 stops, and I have to think that that's what everybody's going to go with.
I think at this rate, too, and here's the thing when it comes to Horn. We've seen him try the one-stopper at both the road courses. Almost made it work at Watkins Glen. Was able to audible out of it at the Sonoma. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries a one-stopper, but everybody else will try the 2. If he goes in right now, Andrew likely might undercut him here, especially since he stayed a second lap, since the difference between the fresher and the older tires has reached that 3 seconds. Connor, again, as you've seen, did stay out on the racetrack. Andrew currently scored in just 3rd spot, and we lost a spot to Brett McBride. By the way, that battle for P7 is getting crazy. Make it 6 because George just missed the backstretch chicane again.
And he's going to lose a ton of spots here. He is way slow on the inside line. I think he may have gotten a time penalty because he missed that curving entirely. And that entire group now is going to get by him. As you see the 90 head to pit road. Eberhard did pass him. Look at Dylan Jones on the inside. Very late braking on the front as he also gets by George. So Jones, Jacoby McClendon, everybody gets on by. And that 9 car still slow trying to get back up to speed.
And you have to wonder when a lot of the air cars might come in here. We're taking a look at this replay. George, all the way in the inside part of the on the backstretch chicane, off those turtles as well. And as you can see, had to let the time penalty go when the driver's on by. And you can see once he gets back onto the banking, that's where he gets the time penalty off and away to make sure he's good to go and allows him a chance to attack. But George was going backwards for a while there before all of that as well. He had just been caught by that group of cars, and they were bumping and banging, losing time behind him, and now George already back to 9th position before he even gets into the pit lane.
And we'll see if he's going to be able to pick things up. I am surprised, though, that Connor Horn has still not come down to the pit lane to this point now at lap 20. I would think maybe you're stretching for one stop because, of course, with Frenage already coming in, Justin, you mentioned how good the undercut here is at the Roval. That separation between those two was only about 3 seconds and change when Frenage actually came down to the pit lane and gave up the number 2 position. So Horn, to respond, if he wanted to maintain the race lead in that head-to-head fight, would have had to follow him down either immediately or pretty soon after to not let the 88 get the better of him. And having stayed out this far now, again, 20 laps, well further than what you need to do on a run to go for 2 stops. So we'll see if that's the case. Is now more slow traffic coming out of the back straightaway. Jones this time.
That is Fredericks as well as Eric Stanford, in fact, that both missed the backstretch chicane trying to catch back up to Horn to get themselves back on the lead lap. But speaking of battles, it looks like that. Let's take a look at this replay because they were fighting side by side. It was for position. And Stanford ends up locking it up, while Fredericks just ends up following him on by, thinking he's going to hit him.
Yeah, that's the problem as well. I think you kind of base your braking a little bit off of the car in front of you, and these two are still fighting. Frenage is trying to work himself through this traffic as well. So all of these are factors as Shackelford now side by side, back it up and onto the banking as he's able to get around Sean Kalis. That was not for position, and Kalis let him go when they got out of that backstretch chicane. But just to show you how fast these cars get up on each other, Jones now going to try to get around Kalis to trying to get that Ricamo Tech Ford Mustang home in one piece.
Yeah, Kalis just wanting to stay out of trouble, not wanting to be a factor because all these drivers are still fighting for playoff positions. Jacoby, the only one to lock himself in. Now McClendon with Jacoby behind, trying to time this up so we can get the run on the high side here. Kalis, I don't think, though, is going to let him by quite yet. Going to have to wait in our couple turns, though, and this is going to lose McClendon some time. McClendon saying, I don't want to lose that. Dives to the preferred line, getting some bubbles. Ends up getting some tire spin on that very right lane off the exit of turn 6.
And of course, McClendon now finds himself once again in front of Jason Jacoby in this exchange as Jacoby tries to get it back up on him. And a lot cleaner of an 88 car. I know that's not saying much because even his machine's beat up. Backhand damage, right-hand damage, but just goes to show you how much of a lick these cars can take and keep on ticking. Good exit that time. You just got to be so patient actually getting it back into the throttle. And because of where you downshift into that chicane as well, if you're in second gear, car really doesn't want to bite up either. That's why they hug that inside wall so tight and cut through some of the paint and try to get any momentum as he continues to hunt but does not commit to the spot.
Yeah, with this amount of downforce, and remember the 750 horsepower on the road courses, you can gain a lot of speed. It's, again, though, timing where you get those runs and momentum to make a move. Most of the drivers tonight, they've been able to pick up spots at, say, the inner loop, where they feel a lot more comfortable. But if you can't get by in those passing zones or get enough of a run, it makes it difficult. Take this section. Even if you get a decent run, you're right back onto the brakes in about 5 seconds or so, which makes it hard to build up enough speed to even make a dive in one of these more tighter sections where you might be more comfortable. You have to wait for other sections. McClendon, though, didn't have a good run onto NASCAR 1. Here comes Jacoby.
Jacoby gonna try to hunt again up and onto the banking this time, and he'll look to ring it around the outside. McClendon still holds the middle line, and they're both gonna brake hard and into the chicane. They both made it, but way too hard in for the 51, and Jacoby backed it up enough to take the spot away. So Jacoby now to a race high P7, and for all of the fun that McClendon has been enthralled in tonight, I think it's probably the first time he's gone the wrong direction for a driver who overall still tonight plus 15 from the grid.
Really, other than Kyle Kamer passing on by and making contact with fresher tires at one point, it's been going basically forwards for McClendon, but Jacoby finally getting towards the pace he wants. It seems like he has settled in at the minute and 20 mark in terms of the amount of fall off. A lot of his competitors in that group were in the 121, so Jacoby, it looks like he's figured things out now in the J. Jacoby 88 machine.
And that's certainly what you want. And again, you mentioned the limited practice earlier that he said he got. And I think even for some of the drivers like a Friedrich, like a Horn, who have tons of time on this track, I'm sure, in practice, but also just feel so comfortable on this kind of a racetrack, even under green flag conditions in the race. That's still practice. Trying to learn, how's my race car going to change over the run? What corners do we need to back up? Where can I attack? And not at all shocked the drivers are getting comfortable, but as they say that, he missed the chicane, and Jacoby piled into the outside wall as he got way too hot. He didn't cut the course, so there won't be a penalty, but he completely overshot that and got into the fence. And not only does McClendon get the spot back, but Thomas George completes the pass also into turn 15.
And another crucial mistake there from Jacoby, already quicker than George through the final chicane. And wanting this spot back, getting by George, forcing to the high side, and getting right to about where he needs to be to keep the position here. But the tires are definitely going off now. All of a sudden here for Jacoby, after looking like a consistent pace, now they've fallen off a cliff here. They've gotten very loose, especially those back-end tires, with how much wheel spin some of these cars are getting on corner exit.
And I guess I'll take responsibility for jinxing that one, just as I was talking about how maybe he figured out where to make the 88 machine tick. Of course, he makes that mistake, and nobody's going to be immune to that, but you do see these drivers now who are starting to, stretch things out onto the longer run, and I think we can about confirm that Connor Horn is going with that one-stop strategy, so that adds some spice to this race. I don't think we really needed it in the number one position because, again, Friedrich was pretty hotly contesting the 24 as is, but now they're not going to be anywhere near each other on the racetrack until we get down to the final couple of laps, but it's because they decide to go with the different strategy. And I'm not sure if we can really say that Horn's the one that's off strategy, Justin. If he was committed to the one stop for the whole time, then he's thinking I'm on strategy, and Friedrich doing two is the guy off. But either way, only one of these drivers can win. So one call was the right one was not, and we'll see who's kicking themselves at the end of the evening, because if they were both on the same strategy, I think this would have been a good fight throughout. I think they both have pretty equal speed, so this one could come down to not only a combination of who's better on track, don't get me wrong, but a strategy going to play a big thing in this. And look at the 24 car. He is digging, trying to get everything he can as he closes in on halfway home.
He's losing about 2 seconds a lap right now with the older tires compared to Friedrich. But we've seen him mention this basically both times he's tried the one-stop strategy on the road courses this season. He's trying something different to deal with the man in that 88 machine that is so dominant in a lot of these races this season. He doesn't want to match the same strategy here, and I don't blame him again. It was looking like it might try and work at Sonoma. It almost worked at Watkins Glen. Now it's going to be curious if he can get it to work at the Charlotte Roval. Here's my thing, though. It looks like Connor, despite all of that, was looking like the better driver. I find it curious that it looks like he might have committed to the one stop, regardless of how Andrew was doing that first run.
Yeah, so maybe that is the plan all along. Of course, also a chance that, it's a strategy call that, both were certainly options. It's not like that you had to commit to one at either point. The 24 could have easily followed the 88 down. So, maybe his decision was made based on how he thought he was matching up with the 88 car in this race. Of course, the lap times right now aren't really a fair story. Connor Horn 1:19.3 and Frenage 1:17.4. That's because the 88's already been in for fresher tires. The gap between those two just under 14.5 seconds the last time by, and it's going to cycle through this time. You see Horn in the infield already. Frenage at the stripe. It drops to 12.7. So he is closing in on him. No doubt that when Horn does come down to pit road, he'll give up the race lead. But again, that will all be relevant and or relative, I guess I should say, in the grand scheme of things. But I mentioned cutting it in on halfway. If you're going for one stopper, Justin, that's pretty much when you want to do it.
Exactly, to make sure you get up on fuel and don't run out. That was his problem last time. So I would expect him maybe to try and stretch an extra lap to be sure. But other than that, this is right where he needs to pit. By the way, Andrew on this run had the fastest lap of the race, a 1:15.8. You might have noticed on the top ticker. That's in part because this track temp as this event's gone on, Evan, went from the 110s in practice to the 100s in qualifying down to the 90s right now. So it's getting pretty grippy on this track.
It is, and that's certainly going to help these guys as here comes Connor Horn, pretty much right at cross flags with 27 down and 28 to go. He is in. So while he gets his 4 tires into fuel for what should be the only trip down pit road for that Speedway Chevy tonight, there goes Andrew Frenage and easily into turn 1. Well, he didn't lead that lap, so that'll help Connor Horn out in the fight for an extra bonus point. He gets into the box. It is clean in. Not the best angle, admittedly, to get service, but 4 tires are going to go on that machine, and he'll get back out and onto the racetrack. Andrew Frenage now cycles back through to the race lead. McBride also going to get around him. And an interesting fight here. I think Connor Horn going to maintain third as Kyle Kamer comes through the corner. Looks like the 24 car does stay in front. So Horn only going to fall as low as third place. But again, all relative in the grand scheme of things.
The thing is, though, Horn's going to have to drive through the traffic on new tires. He came out pretty close, in fact, to McBride, about just 17 seconds back of Andrew as well. So it's going to hold him up a little bit of time here. It's going to be curious to see if he can make this strategy work. Again, we've seen the difference on the new and older tires. Already getting ready to attack Jeremy Bazemore, one of the lap cars in 16th position who lets him by easily, and already trying to cut down this gap and fast.
And he knows that he's got to go. We saw him digging on the old tires. Certainly no shock that the 24 is going to be going at it on the new tires, but this is really where you need those cars in front of you to be on the same page. It's not that big of a deal, and when you're in the middle of a green flag run and you get onto somebody's bumper into the corner and they let you go on exit, that's fine and dandy. But if in this case, when you know that you and Frenage are razor thin, it's a toss-up between not only you two on speed, but who's got the better call. You need to get the traffic at the right time, and here comes a fight for second position. McBride get a swing to the outside, and easy does it for the 24 car, who gets back on through, and Horn now into second place. The interval up to Frenage, about 17 seconds. That time by about the same distance between them that only saw Frenage first pit while the 24 car was out in front.
Have to keep an eye on this one. McBride, by the way, still having to duck down the pit. Most of the other drivers on the one-stopper have come down to the past lap or so. So expect drivers such as this 5 car to have to come down to make sure they can make it on the fuel and have their tires here, because they're at the edge of that fuel cycle at the moment. Mentioned the preferential window, about 28 laps. In the peak race, correct me if I'm wrong, seeing drivers maybe stretch to up to about 31 at the most. So there is a chance to stretch, but if you're McBride, I think you have to come down this time or next.
It is interesting that, of course, a car who has already come down to the pit lane has gotten back around him, and there it is, right on cue. McBride going to come down pit road from the number 2 spot. That'll cycle him back at about P5. Kamer and Jones going to get around him. Those are also drivers, if you want to talk about strategy. Kamer, I should say, has already come in. He's on the 2-stop strategy, pitting early at lap number 15 to cross it over to 16. And Dylan Jones as well, going to get around him, who was on pit road at lap number 17, crossing over to 18. So, different strategies. It's all relative, and actually see it a battle up with your race leader right now that isn't one. McClendon, the most recent driver to get up and around the 88 of Freinage. Again, Scott McClendon actually going to race his way back to the lead lap, having just pitted on a 1-stop strategy, same as what we're seeing out of the 24 car behind the 88. So if it's kind of tough to visualize how much faster Connor Horn is, Scott McClendon, who's a lap down, made easy work of Freinage, about the same tires as the 24, as they now come back in to complete lap number 30 as this race continues to tick on by.
Yeah, but McClendon, not a great run even with the new tires. Trying to use the turtles to his advantage, and that time bounced him left, bounced him right. Hard on that suspension here. So McClendon in a decent spot here. Now one of just a few drivers on the lead lap. 8 in total at the moment are on the lead lap at the halfway point of this race, Evan.
Right past halfway home in this Sim Racers for Mental Health 55. And we've got this small window before pit stops kick back off for the second half of drivers on the 2-stop strategy. Let's take a look top to bottom at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. Freinage in heavy traffic. You're watching it now, but he leads by 15.2 seconds over Connor Horn in second, dealing with traffic of his own, trying to chase him down. Again, the 88 still needs to pit. The 24 is going to try to go the distance. Kyle Kamer, therefore, slides in the number 3 spot at a bit of a rough night, pieces of contact, but the 8 car still in this thing, and he's got a 10-second advantage over Dylan C. Jones, who scored in 4th position. Brett McBride, fresh off of pit road, is down to 5th spot. David Washington in the number 6 position, and the final couple cars on the lead lap include Daniel Epperhart 7th and Scott McClendon 8th. Just behind them, Jason Jacoby, first car down a lap into P9, with Cody Griffin 24th up to 10th.
Strong run for Griffin here in one of his first races again of the season. Skylar Shackelford is in the 11th spot, though. -5 from the drop of the green flag a lap down. Behind them, things have already shuffled out, though. O'Connell is now up a position. Before that, Stanford was up in 12. Now he's back in 14. The drivers who passed him again, O'Connell and Thomas J. George, on fresher tires and a different strategy. Behind them in P number 15 is Brian Chambliss in the 45 machine, as he's trying to keep the car together, with Anthony Fredericks working his way to the final chicane in 16th position. In 17th spot, RJ Williams has just ducked it down into the garage area and parked the car. That means Jeremy Bazemore will move up to that spot 1 lap down in P18. Now 17. Andrew T. Jones, it's been a nightmare race for him. The road course is not his strength. No front end on the 64 machine either at this point. He's in 19th spot. And the last car, 1 lap down. Jeremy E. Miller's 2 laps down in 20th spot in a nightmare race for him. Sean Kalis in 21st has gained a spot from the green flag. While 22nd, the driver on the bubble tonight, has had a horrible run. Scott Brotherton in 22nd. The rest of the drivers are off the track. Todd Novosad, Jonathan Goodell, also amongst the drivers that parked the car early via DNFs. As that's a look at your running order. By the way, Tom Moreno did not make the start for tonight's race out of the 25-car field.
But look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers, specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded, so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Also a note on Brotherton, just to mention the strategy playing all of this was the driver on the bubble. As it sits, Andrew Ferdinand in the lead, battling with Connor Horn. Even if Horn's not in P1, would still jump way ahead, and therefore I think Brotherton would actually find himself as the last car outside, 13th in the standings. Then you'd have to look at where Eric Stanford is, and Stanford is beating him at a racetrack right now by about 6 or 7 spots up at 15th, so not a good spot now for the 20 car. Points would probably have him out and being eliminated tonight.
Yeah, and this applies pressure. You mentioned Stanford here in 15th position. Scott McClendon is the driver that's next behind him in the point standings. I think based on what we're seeing in terms of the points here, McClendon might need to gain at least 3-4 positions here, or hope Stanford has some trouble or goes backwards here to try and move on, because depending on how things shake up, he might be about 4 points back at the moment with 22 laps to go this time for him.
There's a lot of drivers who have a lot riding on this. Of course, Fredericks having an okay run in 16th, but probably not enough to catapult his way from a 13-point disadvantage. Guys like Andrew Jones, of course, trying to make all of this happen, but also not having a good run as he's in 17th. And to be fair, not everybody is as bad off as you see the damage there coming across the front straightaway for Andrew T. Jones. I mean, he's really had a rough night, so not all of our playoff contenders are that worse for wear, but I guess that goes to show you how committed this number 64 car is to just finishing this race, as he wants to get out there and lap it around no matter what.
And don't forget, Cadell came into today's 4th in the point standings with a decent run. That's again behind the drivers that have already locked themselves in. You have to keep an eye on that one. We mentioned 17 spots was the distance to him in the cut line. If Horn was to take the race lead and try and hold on to lock himself in here, he might be someone that might be on the outside looking in here. But keep an eye on Freenosh. The 2-stop strategy, expecting drivers to duck in pretty soon. We've already just seen Andrew's teammate in Dylan Jones duck in this time.
He gets into the pit lane to get his final bit of service, and you're right, with Cadell having those issues early, that could even be a lifesaver for Brotherton. Does that open up an additional spot? There's going to be a lot of number crunching by the end of this race, and of course we'll let you know who's in and who's out by the conclusion of tonight's broadcast here on the iRacing Sports Network. But we're just waiting for the final strategy ball to drop, and there it is. Andrew Ferdinand pitting at lap number 35. He will have a pretty long run to the end, with both of his intervals, or I guess stints to this point in the race, being about 17 laps. He'll have to go a little bit further. 20 laps to go for Ferdinand. Connor Horn has already passed him. There's the 24. He'll go down into turn number 1 before Ferdinand is already even in the box. But Ferdinand is going to get the better tires. He'll be handed about a 17 or so second disadvantage, and he'll have 20 laps to make it happen, as he is clean in and out of the box. But quite a few other cars down there means more traffic when the 88 gets back out on track and he's away.
And I think these colder tire temperatures, or track temperatures rather, have played perfectly for Horn to make this one stopper work at this point. Andrew lost a lot of time, about 18 seconds, 1 second total, compared to where Horn came out on his one-stop strategy when Andrew was still on older tires. Thing is though, Andrew had to deal with the tires doing a bit more hotness, while Horn, he's basically had the track temperature at a pretty much optimal position at 91 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that played into his hand a bit, because he only had a second of fall off that entire time Andrew was still on the track on the older tires for about that 8 to 10 laps.
And now all of a sudden it feels like that 2-stop strategy has ended a little bit earlier, as you see the traffic at the back straightaway. Eberhardt going to get on by. He's got George in tow. That is Jeremy E. Miller. and a heavily damaged entry, just letting them go, and smart decision. This battle, though, between Eberhardt and George is for position. It's just a lap down, and in fact, Shackelford was also for position, but really didn't have much to be able to fight them off. But these two cars not to get lost in the fray, fighting for 11th and 12th spot right now. Also drivers in the midst of the strategy that trying to make their final stops to get to the distance.
Yeah, right now Eberhardt point away from that gap, but give a shout out again to Cody Griffin. Now 16 spots gained as the last car in the lead lap. You mentioned him trying to work hard to make sure he was eligible to race in this series at Richmond last week. And this week, he's been strong, driving for the Neonisium Games machine. That team currently trying to go on the rise, a bit of a road course specialist side for that organization, along with the Roval preference. And now that team is looking very strong today. Cody Griffin, really good race today on this road course, despite the 816 I rating.
Yeah, he actually had worked for a couple of weeks here to be able to make the license eligibility to get into this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, and was able to get it up to the minimum, which is a Class B 3.0. It's actually above that, but a couple of races were able to get him eligible for the series and wanted to make his debut. Of course, might think it's weird to join the series so late in the year, Justin. We saw a handful of drivers actually do that late in 2018, who then went on to make some pretty compelling full season efforts this year.
Yeah, and I definitely have to keep an eye on this team, because they've had some big hitters a part of that organization over its couple years or so. I wouldn't be surprised if, and I hope we see Griffin back for next year, and wouldn't be surprised if maybe he's someone we see in the top 10 or in the top 15 of all the races he competes in 2020. But there's a chance he falls a lap down, because take a look, Horn is saying hello.
And Connor Horn trying to get on through, and man, it's a sharp look at number 15 to machine, but the 24 trying to do business, and this is what we talked about. You hope that these cars are going to play ball with you. The 15 is going to go up the banking. It gives Horn that preferred way left lane, so he can get right up on the turf there. That way he can try to cut the chicane as straight as possible. So a nice piece of driving by Griffin to let him go, while also not giving up a ton of time in his own right. Griffin trying to fight with Jason Jacoby, who's next up on deck. So that's a fight for P7 and 8. That's split in between your leaders, and that's not a good spot. The 88 trying to get over, and I think Connor Horn made contact with him on the right front. If he didn't, it would have been awfully close, and I think somehow he got away with it.
Take a look at this on the OSR TV replay, as Jacoby again is that Ford Mustang up in front. You see how much speed is already being picked up on the fresher tires. Horn trying to arc it down to get towards the inside, or at least the left side of Jacoby, maybe towards turns 3 and 4. You see him get to there, but then tries to come down. A little bit of that contact you mentioned there, and that bit of a scare still ends up seeing him push on forward. He still has a just under 15-second gap, but a lot more damage now on the Speedway Chevrolet.
And we'll see if that right front damage is going to hurt him at all. And he had that damage before, which is why it's hard to tell if he really did make contact there, and if he did, how hard it was. But it doesn't matter where everybody else sits in this game. Lap traffic going to be a factor, no doubt. But let's just look at lap times. That time by going to be 16 laps to go for Connor Horn. He ran a 1:18.0 for Andrew Frenage, who is in traffic trying to catch him. He's 15.7 behind, so he needs at least a second per lap. And that time by, he was nearly in a second and a half faster. So the 88 has got a shot as he cleared Eberhardt.
It's going to be tough here again, because we've seen how powerful this undercut has been for some of the drivers today to get away from some of the battles, but he's going to be up on it. 1:16.6 last time by, as you see on the bottom ticker. Looking pretty good speed. Has kept the car clean, the cleanest out of the entire race today, and then Hellman's machine. But it's going to be difficult, I think, once he gets to Horn, if he can reach him, to make the pass, because, as we mentioned, not a lot of chances to make the move, even on the fresher tires here. He's going to have maybe 1 or 2 laps to try and get the job done at this pace. Horn. And right now, Freenosh still looking pretty comfortable here, Evan, as you see with the corner as well with the extra grip.
Yeah, of course, and in this battle, he has to get this now, and it's kind of a fine line. I know that we like to say that a lot, but the way that it sits, Andrew's going to start to fall off. So that distance between those Justin lap by lap is going to start to fall down less and less. So if you're the 88, well, you're a second and a half faster. You really want to take advantage of these laps now, but you can't overdrive the car because you're still going to need some speed in it for when you catch up to him at the end of the run, assuming it all works. So, interesting how all this plays through, and at 12.8, he's making a very good case that he may just have a real shot at this. It could again come down to the traffic, and there's a handful of cars in between these two. Jones, Jacoby, and Griffin all stand physically in between Freenosh and race leader Connor Horn.
And I would expect most of those drivers, if not all of them, to get out of the way and stay out of the way because, one, they're a lap down. Two, do you want to be a factor of the race win? No, you do not, essentially. So I expect when Freenosh gets to them, those drivers will try and let them by as much as they can. Meanwhile, his teammate in Eberhard had a good run of the final chicane, but can't catch up to the 88. Looks like Eberhard going back down to the pit lane in the 90.
So Eberhard comes down, and that'll be his final trip to the pit lane this evening as he tries to win out in a battle with George Shackelford, and I think maybe Brian Chambliss will be a driver that he stays in front of, so he may cycle back to 11th position and give up 2. Of course, he needs to come down to the pit lane if that car is going to make it.
Here's the thing, though. This is a 3rd pit stop. He's going right to the pit lane. It looks like he might have had to serve a penalty here. Yes, indeed. He had pit about 5 laps ago or so, and now loses a ton of track position. Looks like he had to serve a drive-through of some sorts.
Well, I can't think of what penalty, unless he had a penalty for skipping some part of the racetrack that he didn't yield to, but it's pretty evident if you have that penalty. The time comes up on your screen, and you gotta wait till the clock comes down to 0 before you could accelerate again, and he did. He cut the course on the infield in turn 3 on lap 40, but I don't understand how he wanted to just serve the slowdown penalty, because I do believe that's the only infraction, not serving that, which would lead to a drive-through.
And that's indeed looking like I believe that might be where exactly it is. If you don't serve the slowdown in about the same lap frame, you end up getting that black flag penalty. That time we've seen what that result was here at the Roval. Loses some time. Meanwhile, Andrew just picked up an air a few seconds, about 1.7 on the lap. Still 10 seconds behind with 13 laps to go.
And the intervals now start to tighten up a little bit. No longer was it, that big advantage of a second and a half. It's trickled down to 1.3, which is enough, but not by a lot. And the 4 cars around right in front of him, that's Anthony Fredericks. That was one of the cars that he might have had to deal with. The 4 car, though, was there for some time after he lost it on his own. There's the replay. That car just got loose, and that's a very, very sketchy part of the racetrack. Watch this onboard again, Justin. Not only does he lose it on his own, but he's backed up against the wall around a blind corner. So very, very good driving by him to wait to back that car out. He could have easily flipped it in reverse and pulled out right in front of some of those cars.
Was there for about 30 seconds. In fact, you see Horn pass on by him, and that was smart there. Looked at the intervals on his relative box and thought, if I back up at the wrong time, that's going to be the moment of the race and the chaotic point of this race. Wanted to stay out of trouble, that's what he did. But the reason he lost that control, though, was he tried to let the car coast in, basically, lost the grip. Meanwhile, Andrew dealing with tons of traffic now. 3 cars still in front of him.
And they're finding a 4th position in front of him. So it's Jacoby and Griffin side by side for 7th and 8th, and that is not good Cody Griffin could not make the pass on Jason Jacoby. He'll get out of his way now, and again, it is hard to blame the 15 there. He's in his own fight. He tried to make the inside work. He could not. It's just bad luck for the 88 to catch it right there. Fernandes had to get on the brakes, and not only did that cost him immediate time by hitting the brakes, but that whole back portion of the racetrack slowed him down. Let's see if the 88 lets him go here with the 88 machine closes it on the 3 of Jacoby. He will go to the inside, and side by side lets him go. Much better that time by, as now Jacoby and Griffin can resume their battle.
And was also getting out of the way. That is a teammate to Andrew. He stayed hard on the inside of that backstretch chicane to let him on go. So Andrew now has clean space for days in front, but he only gained about maybe a half a second of the lap because of how much he had to check up for those cars. Now he's lost an narrow lap to work with. Still 11 to go though. 7/10 total is what he actually lost that lap. Fell to the 119s while Horn was in the 118s.
And not only, of course, is that time lost, but you basically double that. That's probably the margin that he wanted to make up on that lap. So now you have to add 2 more laps on to make up what you lost that lap alone. And he was already looking at really trying to stretch the entirety of what was left on the board to make this happen tonight. That basically costs him 2 entire laps, and that could be the difference maker.
It could definitely be and cause that pressure. Now, though, you have to expect Andrew to try and get up on it to catch this man in the 24 machine. Horn's going to have to deal with some traffic, yes. His next car in front of him, though, was a teammate, which was going to help a little bit. Brothers is the next car in front of him. He's not dealt with as much traffic as Fernandes. He's been able to run his own race, keep the car calm, and try and get it to the checker flag to lock himself into the next round of the playoffs. All he has to do with 10 laps to go, make it to the checker flag, and then defend like crazy if and when Andrew catches him.
And I'm thinking that the way that this has played out, that Andrew Fernandes is really on the back foot. This is, again, one of the beautiful things about road courses, and we were talking about it a little bit earlier on in the broadcast here on our chat, was how these strategies work out. Very similar to a Sturgis Conti situation we saw back in the Peak Series at Watkins Glen in 2016, where you can take 2 very fast race cars, put them on 2 very different strategies, and they probably end up on top of each other like we saw in that race. I think that is still a possibility tonight, but Fernandes' advantages are still in the range that he needs at 1.4. Is he going to suffer the fall off? Besides that blip, he has been very consistent in the 117s. In an earlier run tonight, though, this is about the point in the run where he started to lose it.
Yeah, he's going to have to hope he doesn't overdrive this race car. Speaking of drivers overdriving a bit, Jacoby has had a rough lap so far, nearly bounced off the inside wall, lost the spot to Griffin, hit Griffin, now got the spot back, and now is trying to pull back away. These cars have been fighting like cats and dogs for the past couple laps now.
Just goes to show you that they don't care where they are on the racetrack. Everybody's going to go at it, and for Jacoby here, the 15 looks to the inside, but it's an awfully shallow entry, and the 88's up and on the curbs, and Griffin gets it done. I thought Jacoby had him there, with Griffin so far out on the second part that the 88 would have made it happen, but I think Jacoby was too nice there, gave him so much space that he ran himself off the racetrack, and I don't know if it'll hold, but Griffin around for 7th.
I mean, last time they were trying to exit this inner loop portion of the track, he did hit Griffin on the left side. So I might have tried to say, you know what? We're fighting a little bit too aggressively here. May as well calm down the tires, try and cool down the head, and try and rework himself to try and get himself a better opportunity, because he knows Griffin struggles right there with the car loose and struggles back on a NASCAR 1. Jacoby, much more comfortable compared to the 15 at the moment.
It's backing up and onto the banking, and I think maybe Cody Griffin's going to be able to try to run away with this one. Again, new driver, crazy paint scheme on that number 15 Chevy, but Jason Jacoby, he gets it way too hard, and it's a full lock for the 88 car as he completely missed the braking point that time. He nearly took the 15 with him, and I think he got just enough of the curbs to avoid a penalty. But man, here's an onboard shot. Check this ride out.
Yeah, you can see on the right side of your screen, you'll see those blue little cones. Those are the brake markers. Normally you want to be at the 5. Looks like he got it just past the 4. Realizes too late that he sent it way too hard and was about to hit Griffin. Had to lock it up so he didn't destroy his car and his competitor's machine. A good save there and a near disaster situation for both of those drivers. Meanwhile, Andrew is starting to plateau in terms of pace, it looks like now off the turns. Horn has stabilized the gap for now at 7.3 seconds.
And that's what I mentioned just a lap ago, that referring back to his lap times on that second stint, that this was about the point in the run where he started to lose it a bit, and those lap times trailed off from the 17s. So for the 88 machine, may it be the final stand. He gets it to within 7.8 seconds, still needs a second per lap. Last time, though, he was only better by 0.2. And again, when there's so many different places to make up and lose time, there's always a chance that that was just a bad lap. So that time, Horn goes 1:18.7. It is 1:17.8 for Ferdinand. So not done yet, but still tracking to be a few laps shy.
And Andrew actually did that while drifting on the final straightaway to the start and finish line. So again, though, we've seen Horn defend with older tires before. There's a chance he can do it again today. This is a tougher place to do it, though. At Watkins Glen, it was a bit more rhythm. Here, yes, you want to have a great rhythm, but it can be pretty chaotic to stay inside that rhythm. But Freydash is now going to have to deal with Scott McClendon up in front of him, who is the 6th place car on the racetrack.
These are all chess pieces in this match, as McClendon, of course, well out in front, running in 6th position. So, you know, all those battles, Cody Griffin, Jason Jacoby, Thomas George, and all them, McClendon's in front of them all. It's been a very good night for this driver, who came into this evening 9 points below the cut line before it was all said and done. And you want to talk about putting it to him when it matters. He'll get way out of the throttle to allow the 88 car to go. He's got enough of a gap over Griffin to be able to do that. Scott McClendon, underrated performance tonight. I think this is a run that moves him along if it all stays as it runs now.
I mean, you have to remember, he's had some strong performances. He had some in the regular season, but it was just about the consistency. There were some incidents he got into, struggled in a lot of the other races, and now looking like in a decent spot. Here, looking back at Horn, though, the gap is still 6.8 seconds to that man in the teal blue machine. Again, got to get right up on it. Just 5.5 laps to go, and his tires, as we've mentioned, are going off. More so and more so on some of these exits.
I still can't help but to feel that that one lap where he lost, that 1/10 of a second, or I guess a full second, as opposed to gaining that full second, is going to be the difference. And again, there's no guarantee that even if Ferdinand was able to get to Connor Horn, that he would have got around him. You want to talk about some of the drivers who are a bit more aggressive this year than others. The 24 car certainly has not been allowing others to push him around, so it could have been a fight for the ages, but I still think Ferdinand's 2 laps is going to be the difference in this one, as he has now been able, though, to navigate around all the traffic. So it's just him and Horn. He can see the 24 out of the windshield as he comes by the start-finish. The 24 tucks behind the wall and into the infield part of the road course. Connor Horn, though, cannot afford any mistakes here, now inside of the final 5.
Taking a look at the graphic right now in terms of the postseason grid here. Again, the pressure, as we mentioned, was on for tons of these drivers here tonight, but with only a few more circuits to go, if you end up having problems, you're going to have a rough time. One of those drivers in that grid, Kyle Kamer, just blew up this past time by, heading out of NASCAR 2, because of the front end damage on that machine from before. It looks like the temperatures, along with some of the other damage, built up. So Andrew Freenach's teammate is done for the race, coming to 4 to go.
Yeah, so just recapping all of this. Jonathan Cadell, you see him at a grid, he was plus 17. Wrecked out on the opening lap. Kick him back. The 8 car of Kyle Kamer right behind him, plus 14. He just lost the engine. Kick him back. So those are drivers dropping out and into the gray, but also Connor Horn leading this race. He moves from the gray, and if he can hang on to win, rockets up with Ferdinand and Jacoby with those automatic locks. So it really ends up with 2 drivers dropping out, 1 climbing up, Brotherton, and of course you got Stanford on the bubble, McClendon with a very good run tonight, now top 5, as he's been able to now navigate all around the cars that are on lap down to be the first driver not on the lead circuit. It is going to be very, very tight for that final transfer position, and unfortunately it seems like some fast race cars may not make it out of tonight to fight for the championship, continuing next week at Dover.
And Dover's going to be a crazy race, but it goes without saying, Andrew has gotten at least to viewing distance of Connor Horn. He can see him down the straightaways now. But at this point, as we've seen, the tires have evened back out. Just a 10th gained last time by. Unless Horn makes a major mistake on his own here in the Speedway Chevrolet up the road, it might be done for Andrew. He's going to need some type of luck or Horn to get held up somehow to close this gap in time.
And we'll see as he comes into the final chicane. This time you could already see Ferdinand coming off of the corner again. He can see him. He's like get coached into overdriving this race car here as the 24 gets bigger and bigger, but maybe not fast enough. There's Horn tucking behind the wall. Ferdinand closes the gap only by 0.2 that time. That is not nearly enough to make it happen.
Then is the Horn's going to have to deal with at least one more lapped car here for these next couple of laps. One of Andrew's teammates, Sean Kalis, is just up the road from the Speedway Chevrolet. That, if Kalis takes a couple seconds, could help this 88 machine. He did pick up 2 more tenths last time by, but he needs to pick up 2 seconds a lap to all the way to the checker flag to have a chance.
Kalis has been very kind about letting cars by so far tonight. I thought maybe this trip on turns 1 and 2 of the oval was a good time to set it up, and it will be, as Kalis brakes early, stays to the outside, and that is just a very natural position. If you communicate with each other enough for the 24 to have gotten the memo to let somebody by, the infield portion, I think catching somebody into turn 1, Justin, is probably the worst place for that to happen, just because there's so many left and rights that unless you get way out of it, there's always a chance you miscommunicate, somebody gets into somebody. But Horn got lucky there. He caught him up and onto the banking, and a very respectful drive by Kalis to let him go. He'll also now let his teammate go as that 88 car catches up on him. It is a second in the bank for Ferdinand, so it's down to 4.8, but he is running desperately out of time.
And right now, he's going to have to, Andrew has to hope that Connor Horn reaches one last group of track. There is O'Connell, who is fighting with Dylan C. Jones, not for position, but in terms of lap traffic, essentially. That's the only thing that could stand between him and trying to hope he can try and make a move on Horn. But Connor Horn tried to roll the dice today. The dice landed perfectly in terms of strategy. This time, after 3 road course attempts with a 1-stopper, 1 time with an audible, 1 time running into fuel, right now a lap and a half away in closing to make it work at the Roval.
He's trying to pull the Bobby Zelensky, and not that he needed the win, but there was a point at the start of these playoffs that he thought he maybe did. Had the computer go out of service and missed our playoff opener from a few weeks back at Las Vegas, and thought that he wasn't going to make it to Richmond. That would have put him in a position where he needed to win this race. Of course, he was able to start last week at Richmond, and as he takes the white flag now, Connor Horn 1 lap away, not only from the win on the Roval, but from advancing to the championship 12.
And he was actually quicker than Freenosh last time by a full 1/10 of a second. He's had a masterful drive. He's looked comfortable here at the Roval tonight, has been able to have the temperatures work the way he needed them to go to make the strategy work perfectly, and he's kept the car, well, 80% clean, other than the front clip somewhat. It's been a good race for Horn, and this is looking like, as long as he doesn't have trouble here with O'Connell, to be his 2nd road course win of the year.
He's got O'Connell and Jones in front. I'm sure Dylan Jones would like to hold him off to stay on the lead lap, but if I'm Connor Horn, I'm not even going anywhere near those drivers. The buffer is enough. They're able to get cleanly through the chicane in front of him, and he's got one more set of corners to navigate for Connor Horn as the 67 car is going to let him on by, and it'll back up success that he saw earlier in the year at Sonoma Raceway. Connor Horn, the final time in the 15, 16, and 17. He wins the 2019 trip to the Roval. Connor Horn and moving on with his championship hopes.
And he just put a spanking on this field too. 4 cars will finish on the lead lap. Just 4. Just absolutely dominating in pace, even with the one-stop strategy. He was the quickest amongst them, and the quickest car on the track to the checkered.
And you mentioned that little bit of damage. The right front of that car looking a little droopy, but it was no concern for the drive of the 24. And, you know, you go back to that hypothetical 2 seconds or so that Ferdinand lost. That incident doesn't happen. I know it's not a perfect science, but Andrew Ferdinand may have still been a handful of seconds behind. I think Connor Horn made the right decision. He decided to go with a different strategy when we thought that, okay, everybody's pitting. It's going to be a 2-stop night to stretch this thing to halfway home. He only made 1 trip down to pit road and was able to keep that car clean enough and just fast enough to complete the job. And it'll be a long trip around still before he can get to do some burnouts.
I think he's actually trying to save fuel to make sure he gets to there. Remember, he pit right at the halfway point, might be at the edge of the tank there. And I think right now he's just trying to be cautious here and not get any risky penalties. Staying in 4th gear here to make sure he can celebrate in that Speedway Chevrolet here. But man, oh man, very strong race and a lot to look at here and try and dissect here after this checker flag, especially with this cutoff race.
And we'll wait on the points as well to post to be official. We just took a look at what the grid was like coming into this evening. Well, now 4 drivers have been eliminated. It all comes down to when race control tells us officially who's being sent home and who's moving on. But celebrating on the front straightaway, Connor Horn back to Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series victory lane. Race win number 4 on 2019.
And it's well deserved. Again, even before the strategy started taking place, he was the fastest car on the track, and I think he is trying to still burn up those tires, but again, good strategy. Again, though, if he ended up trying to follow Andrew down even a lap later, we might have been talking about a completely different race where Andrew might have been on his rear bumper, and it might have been a lot more pressure for Horn to try and deal with to the checker flag here, but in the end, sticks to his guns with the one-stopper, makes it work, and comes away with this checkered.
Controlled his own destiny as he wins tonight at the Roval. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with your top finishers and get you set for round of 12 opener coming to you next Monday night from Dover, Delaware. You're watching LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Post-race action is next on the iRacing Esports Network.
Simulated racing can be awesome.
There's the points.
Points. Woo.
Oh boy. Stay here. What's the tiebreaker? If there is one.
No tie. There's no tie.
Oh,
2 points.
I'm looking at the wrong number. Okay. I'm looking at night for some reason. Okay.
No tie. But it would be best finish in this round.
McClendon short by 2 points. Stanford finished on the bubble. Brotherton, Jones, and Fredericks are also out with McClendon. Aye.
So Brotherton is the only one who drops out, right? Who was above before tonight but finished below?
Yeah.
He was on the cut line coming into tonight.
There was some pit stop strategy shenanigans, though, before that checkered. A couple different teams ducked down to the pits with 2 to go, including Eberhard.
Ooh, we gotta Michael Waltrip these folks.
Maybe. Seen Shackelford do the same thing.
Not like Connor needed anything when he's doing it for Jeremy. Jeremy didn't really need it.
McClendon.
If it doesn't work, then...
Yeah, because Everhart parked it on coming out of lap 51 onto 52 in 11th. Or coming out of lap 52, rather. After he smacked the wall, it looks like, and then just decided to park it. Oh, he actually blew up. Okay. Regardless, his teammate's misfortune helped Stanford. I'm ready to go when you are.
Who's gonna do the IndyCar lap when we're done? Back live from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, where LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Races for Mental Health, continued tonight with the 26th race of the year, and now the round of 16 has concluded. We'll talk points and more in just a moment. We'll also chat with the top finishers. Before we do, though, let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Connor Horde goes to victory lane. He holds off Andrew Ferdinand on the one stop versus the two stop to get the win and to punch his ticket on through. But it was a two-horse race with Rhett McBride nearly a minute behind in the number 3 position. You've also got Dylan Jones, a final car on the lead lap, coming home in the number 4 position. P5 tonight with Scott McClendon. Jason Jacoby comes home in 6th with Cody Griffin 7th. Thomas George in 8th spot. Dave Washington 9th. And Brian Chambliss rounding out your top 10.
Blake O'Connell finished in 11th, but Skylar Shackle for 2 laps down in 12th. He had to pit with about 3 laps to go. Andrew T. Jones finished 13th, with Eric Stanford in 14th position where he started. Daniel Eberhardt had a last-minute turn of events, end up his race in 50s on lap 52 with multiple incidents. He finished 3 laps down. That helped Stanford with the playoff positioning. Jeremy E. Miller in 16th, Jeremy Bazemore in 17th, Sean Cale is 4 laps down in 18th. He was joined by Scott Brotherton in 19th, and Kyle Kamer rounding out the top 20.
Continuing on through and around out the field tonight, 21st went to Anthony Fredericks. Rest of these cars didn't make it all 55 laps. It includes RJ Williams, 22nd, Todd Novosad, 23rd, and Jonathan Cadell with that incident off of the bat in 24th position. That's been a look at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers, specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Let's head down to RealSimRacing Victory Lane, where Connor Horn is back in Victory Lane this year, and it's at a road course again, no less. Congratulations, Connor, on the win. You and Andrew looked pretty even there, and the difference this evening came down the pit strategy.
Yeah, I thought when I made a practice run, a long practice run earlier, that I could go like 30 laps on a tank of gas, but it ended up being way tighter on fuel than I thought it would be because the track sped up so much, so everyone was on the gas more. So I was a little bit in doubt after, once again, I didn't really make it to halfway on the first run, and I still had a feeling I could save, as long as I didn't overshoot my box like I did at Watkins Glen, I could have enough to save and back up to Andrew a little bit and still be able to battle him for the win instead of just holding him up like I did at Watkins Glen. And I didn't have to save much. The only saving I did was just switching it up, going only in as low as second gear in the chicanes. I was running first to go fast, obviously, and that was burning a lot of fuel, so I stopped doing that. And once again, it came down to me and him, and luckily I came out on top for road courses overall.
You had thought a couple of weeks ago that you may have had to win this race to move on. You were able to get back with us a week ago from Richmond, so it wasn't quite as dire, but still you came into this evening 2 points below the cut line. Obviously very confident in what you're able to do as a road racer, but were there any nerves, any jitters coming into this, or, you know, as soon as you hit the racetrack this evening, you knew you were fast at practice and Q, that kind of faded away?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be me and Andrew, probably top two. It's been that way both of our road courses before, with Camer or Jones third, and me and Andrew we just have something that I guess no one else really has at these road courses, and I was pretty confident. I was pretty confident after McClellan didn't have the best of qualifying runs. I just had to beat him. Really, I was only worried about him. I know Brellerton was above the cut line. I don't even know if he qualified well. I was more worried about see what McClendon does because he's always fast, and luckily I came out on top, got the win, didn't have to worry about pointing in, and luckily I missed all the drama behind me apparently.
Yeah, there was a couple of incidents here and there, a lot of varying things, battles all the way to the end, but I guess, figuratively speaking, you keep your nose clean. The car did have some scuffs on it, but you complete the objective, and that is to advance into the round of 12, and now you get set for the next step in your fight for the Full Throttle Cup. It all starts at Dover next Monday, to be followed by Talladega and Kansas. What are your thoughts as the championship rolls on?
Yeah, about the scuffs on the right side, that's just me trying to give away the race in every way possible. I hit that final chicane, the wall out of a final chicane, probably 3 times that run. I tried to give it away, but luckily I was able to hold on. Dover, I've been good at Dover in the past. A new package, I think, brought me closer to the competition this year. I think I had a win at Dover if it wasn't for the bad yellow at a bad time. I still I think got the almost Cadell in that race. And Kansas, I don't remember if it's day or night, but if it's a day race, it's probably going to be a little bit of a pack race first couple of laps, maybe like Vegas, but it's going to migrate to the top like always. And obviously, I didn't say anything about Dega. I skipped Dega because, you know, Dega's just Dega. Who knows what's going to happen there.
And I think that is maybe what it puts a little bit of extra emphasis on the results that we see next week at a Monster Mile, Connor. But the focus tonight is celebrating, getting the race win, and moving on to the next round of the championship, as it has been all year long. Who makes it happen for the 24 car?
All of my teammates and all my guys, Jeremy Miller, Skylar Shackelford, Brian Chambliss, 3 of my teammates, who I'm pretty sure all 3 of them advanced to the next round, so good job to all of them. I know Skylar and Jeremy were struggling a bit and got caught up in stuff that might not have been their doing, but I think they advanced, they conquered. And I know Skylar loves Dega, so you'll probably see him up front there. And I was skeptical about the one-stop strategy after Andrew came in so early for the 2-stop, but I had Cade and Rush actually spotting for me and just basically keeping me cooled down and all that, assuring me that it's going to be fine, and it ended up working out for us. I'm glad a one-stop worked this time.
It was the decision to make this evening, and you're a race winner in the Full Throttle Cup Series at the Roval. Connor, appreciate your support of the series. We appreciate your time as well post-race tonight. Congratulations on the win, and we'll catch you out in Dover next Monday when it all resets.
Thank you, Evan. Quick shout-out to Berlin Raceway, Menards Racing, and also big shout-out to Speedway and everything they do for my car. I'm sorry I dinged up the car. It won't happen again.
Still look good when it's out in front. That's Connor Horn, your race winner tonight in the Sim Races for Mental Health 55 at the Roval. The other driver in that road course duo is Andrew Ferdinand, who is bridesmaid this evening. Justin, your trackside with him.
Yes, indeed, Andrew. Coming away second tonight, just 4.9 seconds behind Horn. Talk us through things here, because you were the top driver trying the two-stop strategy tonight. How would you describe overall your race with this strategy call?
Yeah, put a lot of practice in this week. I expected to run a little bit better. Hats off to Connor there. He was flying. I had absolutely nothing for him. But through the week, from my practice times, and I've done a few runs, I showed the two-stopper being 15 seconds quicker, and I think it just being a little cooler, I think that really upset it. But we went for that. We kind of just had a clean race, got through lap traffic, and we were starting to run him down there at the end. I think he was just letting off, to be careful with it, be safe. So just a little disappointed with the second, but we'll take it and move on to the next round.
It looked like, though, too, once we got to the second half of that second run especially, it looked like you were struggling a little bit here and there. Sometimes you were gaining a few tenths of a second, then you lose some time. How was that car handling heading towards that checker flag?
It wasn't too bad. I started catching some lap cars there, and that definitely started affecting it. Yeah, I mean, I plain and simple didn't have the speed that he did. So, if I was catching him, maybe I had a clean lap or a good lap. But he was consistent and fast. Again, hats off to him. He really kicked some butt tonight.
Yes, indeed. And, of course, off to the round of 12 you are already with that victory against Richmond. That was your 12th win of the season last week. But next track is somewhere where you might be another favorite, Dover. It's going to be a very quick track from what we heard, though, with the downforce levels and the 750 horsepower package back behind your hands in that steering wheel. Your thoughts on Dover?
Yeah, you asked me last year was my favorite track on the sim. This year's a little tight for my liking, and you're on the gas a little bit much for me. So I think this next race, though, is going to be extremely important. This round has 2 wild cards in Talladega and Kansas. If Kansas is anything like Vegas, and I think Kansas has more grip than Vegas, we're going to be almost flooring it. So it might be another Talladega. And Dover, it's hard to say, but that's probably the one race you can control your outcome. And that's saying something, because I remember 2 spring races ago, we came off of turn 4 with a 6-second lead. You leave turn 1 on the wrecker. So lap cars, they can wreck. It's all over the place there. So I look forward to it. I really, really do like the track. I don't like the package there, but it's a good track for me. We'll put in a whole bunch of practice and try to show up with more speed next week.
Of course, overall second place finish, and 4 of your teammates also moved themselves on to the next round of the playoffs. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
A big thanks to my brother for building computers, my family, friends for putting up with it, you guys for broadcasting, Brian for doing a great job admitting, Eric puts the paints on, Daniel, Dave, we did a lot of practice together, Dylan, Kyle, just everybody over at Aegis, Steve as well. All the fans are watching. I hope we put on a decent show for you guys. It was a lot of fun to drive, and that's about it.
Congratulations on second place, Andrew. Congratulations to your team. 4 of your Aegis cars are into the round of 12.
Thanks so much, guys.
That was Andrew Freenach coming away second tonight. Evan, I believe you're standing by with the third place finisher, Rhett McBride, though.
We talked about the speed differences between a lot of these cars in the field. The Rhett McBride fought his way home for the third place tonight. We're trackside with him now. Rhett, congratulations on a good result. I think that probably had a realistic idea coming into tonight that, Connor and Andrew were going to be the class of the field, but not that the best of the rest is a bad term, but I think it fits great for you because you came into this evening not in the greatest of spots, only +5 on the playoff cut, and courtesy of this result, you're safely into the round of 12. Just tell us about it.
Yeah, Evan, that was the goal for the night. Connor especially was just on another planet, and Andrew's always fast. My main, the goal for tonight was just to get out of there clean, get a top 5, and move on to the next round. So to finish third is a bonus because, the main thing I wanted to do was just not have any problems and shoot myself in the foot.
Of course, there's a lot of opportunities to do that. We mentioned when we were watching Freinage and Horn there do battle for the race lead that normally you've got, there's only so many places on the oval that you can screw up. Here, it's every single corner is riddled with opportunities to get into a runoff, which probably puts you in the wall pretty quickly. Of course, the chicanes really tested drivers tonight, and even for the good result that you guys had, that number 5 Chevy, not totally pristine. Where'd you find it most challenging this evening?
Yeah, I was talking to Andrew. I mean, turn 2, that second left-hander after you cross the start-finish line, for some reason, man, the front end was just, it was like on skates. There was just not much grip in the front end there, and I got through there a little too hot one time and kind of knocked the right front fender in, but, other than that, I kept it pretty good. I mean, there was a couple of times Kyle and I got racing pretty good there. I mean, nothing out of the way. It was just good, hard racing, I think, a couple times. And it's easy to do when you're running close out there. You might overcook the braking zone a little bit. And, I mean, you kind of beat on the bumper a little bit. And other than that, that was it. But, yeah, I mean, it was all fair. And I enjoyed it.
I was going to say that the competition starts to get tougher now. It doesn't. I mean, it's the same drivers, but your margin for error slims up now as you successfully advance into the round of 12. And listen, a P5 finish in this round, second highest driver without a race win. It should be well enough to keep you on going, but there's always question marks, and you are going to have to be that little bit better to continue to move on in the quest for this 2019 title. Dover is next Monday night. That kicks off a 3-week strand with Dover, Talladega, and Kansas. What's going to be the keys to surviving and keeping this thing going?
I think just what you said there is just being smart and trying to survive at Dover. You just got to be smart about it, especially the first couple of races. You got to keep it kind of clean. Anything can happen at Dover. I mean, it's one of those tracks when something happens, you just don't have anywhere to go. So you got to be smart. And now is really when it's time to get up on the wheel, because all summer you're just trying to position yourself so you're there at the end. But you have to be aggressive, but you got to be smart about it from here on in.
You've shown the ability to do that so far this season, Brent. We look forward to seeing what that number 5 team's going to be able to do in the rest of the playoffs, but it's a P3 tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Who do you want to say hi to?
Yeah, I just want to thank Ego Electric Mowers, all the guys at Steel Horse Racing. Thanks to Swanee for spotting for me and helping me out there. And just everything that you guys do in the booth, doing a great broadcast, and we'll look forward to next week and see you then.
Look forward to it as well, Rhett. Appreciate the time. Again, congratulations on the victory.
Thanks, Evan.
He's able to get the job done. It moves on into the round of 12. P3 tonight for Rhett McBride as he punches his ticket in. A big thanks to Rhett, Andrew, and Connor for giving us some time here post-race this evening. Let's let everybody know, Justin, where they all are. We kind of alluded to it a little bit when we were chatting with those guys. In by win is Freinage as well as Connor Horn. We knew all of that coming into this evening, as well as Jason Jacoby. So Horn adds his name to that list. 3 drivers win, 3 different playoff drivers for each round. The rest, though, based on points. Dylan Jones, Rhett McBride, Thomas George, Brian Chambliss, Skylar Shackelford, Kyle Kamer, Jeremy Miller, Jonathan Cadell, and Eric Stanford are good. Cadell drops an amazing 7 spots in the points, but still makes it. Scott McClendon 2 points shy, along with Brotherton, Jones, and Fredericks are going to be headed home.
And some of the bad luck, I think, with Everhart ended up helping Stanford a bit. That gained him an extra point to gain that 2-point buffer. But in the end, McClendon had a very strong drive. Just couldn't get that one spot he needed. He got some of that luck throughout the race with cars blowing up and having good pace, but just needed to pass one more car. That's it, I think, really to put himself in a good position. And hope that he had everything go his way. It just didn't. But now, next round's going to be crazy. Dover, we've talked about that with some of the drivers. Quick speeds, quicker than we have usually seen at Dover. In fact, for the downforce with that 750 horsepower, it might be very hectic there. Talladega is another wild card. That's going to be very hectic, as mentioned, Horn wanting to stay away from that hecticness if he can right now. But Kansas as well is on the schedule, and that track is one where we'll probably see guys like Freenosh try and run back up at the front, guys like Jones, where drivers are in their comfort zone, at least a couple of them, back in the mile and a half.
Of course, I think there's a lot of opportunities for those drivers to get back into that rhythm, but Dover's going to be big because you mentioned Talladega. Some drivers would prefer that they don't even have to show up for that one. Only one driver going into that race knows that they'll be racing in the round of 8, and that is if it is a playoff driver who wins at the Monster Mile next Monday night. We look forward to watching the rest of this championship play out with you for the rest of the year here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. But until next time, that's it for us here tonight from the Roval. Encourage you to also tune in with us this Thursday night for more live sim racing action. You can catch the championship finale of the Recmo Tech Cup Series, 9 Eastern start this Thursday, LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And of course, we'll be back with you in 2 weeks' time. So on behalf of the entire team at LSR TV and for your broadcast team tonight upstairs, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince and Randy Jenneth, want to thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to Connor Horn, who gets the win and is moving on. We resume next Monday, October the 7th, from the Monster Mile. That race and every race of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series going to be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Charlotte, where 16 drivers has been whittled down to 12.